Hi, Piano Pandemictitivites, Part 4. Things I wish I had known. Here's the thing I wish I had known. I wish I had known that teachers teach as they were taught. And that has several implications. So I'll tell you a few little stories about that, and then maybe some suggestions about how to address this reality that teachers teach as they were taught. All of us, when we're taught, we come up through a tradition and we absorb that tradition, and then unless we have actively questioned that tradition, that's what we pass on when it's time to teach. Suddenly, we're not the ones asking questions. We're not the ones being told what to do. We're the ones who are supposed to provide the answers with these students. How should I practice? How should I sound? What should I do? Blah, blah. And we draw on what we absorbed from our teachers in order to answer those questions. So that's how this stuff gets passed on. I think that's self-explanatory. A few examples of how I was taught as my teacher was taught. One is that it was non-negotiable that in order to be a professional, I would need major works of Franz Liszt and late Beethoven sonatas. And my teacher said, you can't have a professional career. You will have to play the late sonatas of Beethoven, the last 5 sonatas. You will have to have major works of Liszt ready to go. And there's no way to make a career in music if you don't do that. And so I played that music, and I'm glad I learned it. It's great music. But actually, it has not formed a significant part of my career. And it turned out I actually did not have to have late Beethoven sonatas, or certainly don't have to specialize in them. That's not what most people are interested in hearing where I play. So it turned out not to be true, although I'm glad I benefited, and I would have studied that music anyway. But the world has changed a lot, and that wasn't true anymore. Another thing a teacher once said to me, many of us at some point along the way, we stop, we ask our teachers, so, do I have what it takes? Is it realistic for me to keep going, studying this stuff? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to have a career, or am I just going to end up running a car wash? What's going to happen to me? And my undergrad professor said to me, oh, you'll find a little college somewhere. It'll be fine. You get your advanced degree from some decent place, and there'll be a little college for you. That was true in her era, and it stopped being true during my era. I was one of the last people, to jump onto the lifeboat of getting a position at a smaller college. And so that now no longer is accurate to say to a young person, oh, you'll find a little college somewhere that'll hire you. For full-time anyway. I think adjunct is fairly easy to get. Full-time is really not easy to get. So that was also changing. Another one, and this is not so much about career, but about piano playing itself. Many teachers pass on ideas about finger legato, almost like a religion of the piano, that you have to, everything has to be connected in legato. And my teachers didn't really emphasize that as a non-negotiable. I just sort of absorbed it from being in the piano world, that I had to do this. And I tried to do it, and it was a really big surprise when I found out I didn't actually have to mindlessly connect everything. I could actually make judicious decisions about it. If you want to see more about that whole idea, I have a video somewhere out there called Legato Cat, when legato matters and when it doesn't. You can check that out. Another thing, obeying additions, that the pedal marking says that you have to hold the pedal down here. It says you can't hold it there. It says you have to use 3 on B flat here. None of that is actually true. And I was very, very surprised to find out that many editors who are providing pedal markings and fingerings and other requirements don't actually have notable careers as performers. In fact, in some cases, there are people who are very well known for editing editions and putting in fingerings who can barely play their way out of a wet paper bag. And it was a big surprise to me to realize I could question that. I could disagree with what was in the edition. I don't have to obey the editions. So you may come from a tradition where everything that's in the book you have to do, or maybe you don't. To me, that was a big surprise. And then one more tradition that gets passed on, the same piece is getting played over and over again. 1 million people playing the same 100 compositions for the last 100 years. That kind of sums up the classical piano world. And there is such a thing as the teacher who, whenever any student gets to a certain level, they automatically get Beethoven Opus 13, or they automatically get the Rachmaninoff C-sharp minor prelude, because that's all the teacher knows. And so they tend to pass those things along. Okay, so what should we do about this? First of all, there's nothing we can do to prevent the fact that teachers teach as they were taught. In many ways, I teach as I was taught. You know, my professor's picture's on the wall right there, and I quote them every day. But I have also had to come to terms with blind spots that they had, or areas that they simply never had to deal with because their world didn't require them to. I'll give you one example. My grad school professor was very natural technically, just brilliant technical player without a lot of effort, and had been so from a very early age. So to her, technical problems were, you know, someone just isn't getting it, they need to be smacked on the back of the head or something. She had not struggled through it, and so she didn't really know how to come alongside and walk somebody through those problems. I had to do that entirely on my own. And so that was an area where she wasn't super well equipped to teach. But in other areas, she really was. She played all the Brahms chamber music, everything Brahms ever wrote, every single Beethoven sonata she had performed in prestigious venues. So those are the things I truly benefited from. So when you look at a teacher, here's some things to think about. First of all, you have to recognize the parameters of anyone you go to study with. You have to recognize the boundaries. What tradition is this person from? And to what extent is this person going to stay right within that tradition? And therefore, what are the boundary lines of what I'm going to get out of this? And if you're okay with that, that is great. How flexible is this teacher adapting to a changing world, to changing musical styles and expectations? In what areas? Does this teacher have any blind spots? Types of music you're interested in that this teacher doesn't really care about? Solving certain types of technical problems, etc., etc. If you were to become a clone of this teacher musically, what would be missing from your life? Are you okay being a clone of this teacher musically? And if you're not, what would be missing that you have to fill in somewhere else? So therefore, the second thing is you're actually going to have to hunt for the resources to fill in those other areas, whether it's improvisation or certain types of technical work or styles of music, whatever it may be that teacher's not going to provide. You'll have to get good at that. And finally, try to find fellow travelers, other musicians who have a similar open-mindedness, curiosity, willing to hunt down resources, willing to question authority, willing to look for different solutions and try things other than what the academy says to do, and be friends with those people and encourage each other and help each other out. Because ultimately, you know, teachers teach as we were taught, and we're only going to give you so much, and then you're going to be on your own. So you might as well get used to that dynamic right now and start planning accordingly. I wish I had known that teachers teach as they were taught. See ya.